Hi, I'm Don Sackett, one of the founders of SciAps. We're here today to talk about XRF scrap metal sorting, one of our favorite markets. We love the recycling market. Anyway, I got 3 XRFs here, low, medium, high. So this is the X-50, the entry-level device, and we're going to talk about the price performance. This is the mid-range, the X200. This is the high-end, super-duper high-end, the X550. We get a lot of questions from customers, salespeople. Hey, which one should I get? Like, why would I get that one instead of that one, or that one instead of that one? So we're going to try to cover that quickly. So the base model is called the X50. The biggest limitation to this model is, like other ones, it does not measure magnesium or aluminum or silicon or phosphorus or sulfur. So it does not do those 5 elements, so that limits how precisely you can sort some of the more challenging alloys. However, if you're a smaller recycler and you're doing a lot of common metals, it'll be a great tool. It's priced great, and it'll do everything you need. So, and it'll do a lot of aluminum. So let's focus on these aluminum alloys. If I shoot a 2024 in 1 second, it says 2024. If I shoot a 6061 in about 1 second, it says 6061 type. We'll explain what we mean by type in a second. What else can I do here? I can shoot an 1100, and it'll generally say 1100. It will, 1100 type. So that's the situation. You can zip through a lot of aluminum alloys that are the more common ones. The assumption that all these devices make, if they don't measure those light elements, is that what you're testing is probably the most commonly found alloy. So let's talk about, like, where do you get in trouble with the X50? Or any of these low-end analyzers. Here's where you get in trouble is, let's say you're sorting some 2000 series. When I shoot this 2024, in about 1 second, it says 2024 type. But what happens if I shoot a 2014? What does it do? It also calls it a 2024 type. Why? Because, like we said, this doesn't measure magnesium, and the difference between these 2 alloys is one has about 1.5% mag, one has none. So that's where you can get a mix-up. Another common mix-up is the 6063 1100. If I shoot an 1100, like I did a minute ago, it'll say 1100 type right on. But if I shoot a 6063, guess what it says? It says 1100 type. Why is that? Same story. Because this is not measuring magnesium. So what it's seeing the tramp copper, and it's thinking it's an 1100. But if you measure it with one of these 2, you'll measure the mag and you'll sort it correctly. We see a lot of mix-ups in either old XRFs that are really slow on magnesium, or old models that don't measure mag at all, and they mix up 1100 and 6063 quite often. So the key is, be careful of limitations if you're going to go with the most entry-level model. But other than that, you can do just about anything you want. It'll measure almost all your alloys. Another way you can get in trouble, this is a magnesium alloy. If it doesn't measure magnesium, guess what? It's not going to know it's a magnesium alloy. It's going to call it a 6000 or something. Again, the solution to that problem is go to a higher grade unit. But if you don't run into magnesium alloys and you do basic stuff, save the money, go with the entry-level unit. Same with an aluminum bronze. If you shoot a copper alloy that's an aluminum bronze, it's going to call it a CDA 110, thinking because it's not measuring aluminum. So, at the risk of going on, same story. Move up to a higher grade where you'll measure that aluminum, that silicon, and you'll be able to accurately sort those alloys. That's the story on the X50. For the right purpose, it's a great tool. It's a lot less expensive than the high end, and it sorts almost all your alloys correctly. You just got to be aware of the limitations.